Today we will continue our discussion about scale. I thought today we'd talk about how to determine how big to make things to have them come out to be in scale. So stay tuned and see what we're going to do. Alright, so today we'll work with 1/12 scale. I'm doing that for several reasons. Number one, it is the scale I'm most comfortable in, but it's also the scale that is most popular. So it's probably the one that more of you will find useful. Also, it's the easiest one to get the concept in, so once you understand it in this scale, translating it to whatever scale you're working on will be a lot easier. So by definition, 1/12 scale, 12 inches in real life, equals 1 inch in miniature. Since 12 inches equals a foot, 1 inch equals a foot. Now that makes it really easy if we're doing something large. Say we're doing a miniature room and we want it to be the equivalent of 9 feet by 12 feet. Well, then our room will be 9 inches by 12 inches. That's pretty easy. But what if we want to go smaller? What if we want to make a coffee cup or a dinner plate or anything else? Because the sky's the limit. You can make anything. You just have to figure out how big and how to do it. Well, let's move down our chart. If 1 inch equals 12 inches, then a ½ inch will equal 6 inches in real life. And a ¼ inch will equal 3 inches. And an 1/8 of an inch will equal 1.5 inches. And 1/16 will equal 3/4 of an inch. And really all we need to do is to add these measurements together and kind of juggle them and combine them to make any measurement we want. So let's get started. Alright, let's start with plates. I have a couple of dinner plates here. I pulled these right out of my kitchen cabinet a little while ago. And I've got a ruler. I've got a ruler and I've got a tape measure. These are your best friends when you're trying to do scale. That and a piece of paper and a pencil and maybe a calculator, depending on where your math skills are. So we're going to measure this plate. Now this plate, this blue one, is kind of big. It's a little bit oversized, and I've noticed that it's a little bit larger than most plates I see. So we measure across. From this edge to this edge, it's 10.5 inches. I also brought one of my white plates. These are actually the ones we use most often at our house. And this one is 10.25 inches. And that's a pretty average plate size. I see plates all the way from about 10 inches to 10.5 is about the biggest I ever see a plate on a normal sized dinnerware. So how do we figure that out in scale? Well, we look at our amounts here. How do we get 10 inches out of this? Well, we're going to come close. We're not going to be exact. We know that 6 and 3 is 9. And 1.5 more will be 10.5. Now that's our maximum we probably want to go. So let's see how big that is. We add 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/8. And if we add that all up, we'll find that's 7/8 of an inch. And that's going to be a big plate. So you probably want to size it down just a little bit, kind of bring it down a little from there. Now I've got a little plate here. It's got fish and chips on it. And my stand for my light is in the way of my ruler. This one is actually 3/4 of an inch in diameter. So this would equal a 9-inch plate. This is a plate that I actually bought. It's a little plastic one that I bought at the dollhouse store that I made a fish and chip dinner and put on it. So 3/4 of an inch would equal 9 inches. That's a good size for a plate. One of my things I always do, if I can, is I hold on to the real item and then I go and get my doll. She's still sitting. And I hand the miniature to her. And I look at it in her hand. And I say, yeah, that looks good. Oops, she's dropping things today. But that's kind of my insurance, because not only do we need it to be the right size, we need it to look like it's the right size. So you need to watch how big your plates are. And I've noticed in a lot of the really inexpensive sets of dollhouse plates, sometimes some of the cheap ones that you get at the craft stores are actually 1 inch in diameter. That's this big. That's big. And we don't have plate size. Serving plates maybe, not dinner plates. So that's our plate story. Now something simple like a pie. This is a really simple pie. Made this a long time ago. It's kind of dusty. It's been on display for a long time. It's in a little pie plate. Let's measure some real pie plates first. I have a couple. Again, I pulled these right out of my kitchen cabinet. So the inside measurement on this pie plate is 9 inches. And the outside rim is about 9 3/4. Here's my other pie plate. This one, the inside measurement's 9 1/2. This is a pretty big pie plate. This makes a big pie. So that's, both of those, around 9 inches, would make them 3/4 of an inch in diameter, just like this pie. Now a mistake I see a lot of people making is they'll pull out a bottle cap and they'll say, oh, that's shaped like a pie plate. I can make a pie out of this. And I've seen so many tutorials and so many people making pies out of these, but when we measure it, let's put my little ruler over it, it goes past the 1 inch mark on both sides. This in scale is over 1 foot in diameter. So let's hand Mrs. Doll a pie on the little pie that's in scale. We see that looks about right. Now let's hand her a bottle cap. Yeah, that's too big. So that's kind of how we do scale. We measure things. We go out, we measure. We make sketches. I actually sketch out, when I made this chair, I sketched out the basic shape, and then I put my dimensions in real life, and then I made them in miniature. And this one I just put together really quickly just for our last scale video. This was just a quick, just glue it together and be done with it, just to illustrate the point of the size. So it's not a difficult thing, it just takes a little time. Now a really good ruler is really important. I love this one for measuring things, because like you can see, I can put my item under it and I can measure it, I can see it. And it measures down, if you look right here, to 1/16 of an inch. So I can get really accurate. And I can, like I said, I can see through it. Now the one thing I hate about this ruler is I'm forever losing it on my work table, because I'll lay it down and I'll come back and it's clear and it disappears. But that's just me. A tape measure. It doesn't have to be expensive. I think I got this at Dollar Tree. I use this all the time to measure things in real life to see how big they are. Chairs, tables, whatever, birdhouses. That's how I know how big to make them. So this is our second installment on scale. I hope it was helpful. And there'll probably be another installment on the scale videos coming up in the future. So I'll talk to you later.